Welcome to North TV's Public Forum on Veterans Services, the first of 3 public forums North TV will hold over the next 6 weeks. The second will deal with the future of North Attleboro Public Schools, certainly a very important topic. And the third will be on economic development, which ironically, economic development might actually end up helping North Attleboro Public Schools and all of the town's departments. Those are future public forums, and we'll have more information about those later on. Tonight is also a very important topic, veterans services, and we have a very distinguished panel made up of, to your left, Rebecca Jennings. Many people know her when they visit Town Hall. She is the North Attleboro Veterans Service Officer. To her left, your right, is Lyle Perney, North Attleboro Veterans Assistant. Evan, and I promise not to butcher the name, Evan Macrinicolis. I had it right until the cameras went on. He is the Director of Training and Compliance for the state's Office of Veterans Service. To his left, your right, is Fran Costa, National Commander of the Disabled American Veterans Auxiliary. And to her left, your right, is David Fitzgerald, National Service Officer for the Disabled American Veterans Boston office. And stuck in traffic, and people who commute from Boston certainly know about that, is David Henke, Veterans Affairs Outreach Officer in the Boston office, so he will most likely be joining the panel a little bit later on. First of all, we thank everyone for watching this both live on North TV and throughout the month of June and July on our government channel. Let's begin with explanations about what each of you do. We will start with you, Rebecca, for people who aren't aware of what the Veterans Office in North Attleboro does. What does the office do, and what is your role?
Sure. So our office, both myself and Lyle, we help veterans and their family members and survivors with resources and all sorts of benefits they might be entitled to. Some of them Evan might go over a little bit, the Chapter 115 benefits, helping them to process VA claims if they have occurred any injuries in the military, along with anything veteran related. And then of course we do Memorial Day events. We're getting ready to do our 4th of July Veterans Picnic, and that'll be the 2nd annual at the Hockomock YMCA.
And Lyle is actually the first person you would meet when coming into the Veterans Office. Officially the assistant, but I know, Lyle, you do so much more.
Well, yeah, I am the assistant, and everything that Rebecca just mentioned, I try and do. She's been in the field for almost 20 years, and I've been doing this for 2, so she knows more than I ever will. We're a good team. We try and service, from both the state perspective and the federal perspective, all our veterans' needs. I was in the Vietnam War, so I have a particular interest in helping older veterans, people my age who, for whatever reason, never really came in from the cold. So we're there and available for everybody, and it's surprising how many people we see who are Vietnam-era vets.
I must be showing my age, because when I think of Vietnam, I don't think older veterans, but that is the truth.
Well, I'm 70 years old, and there were people older than I am fighting in that war. So,
how about you, Evan?
Yeah, I'm currently the Director of Training and Compliance. So on the training side, by state mandate, it's a law that every city and town has to have a veteran service officer with a population of over 12,000, and I get the privilege to train them in both federal and state benefits. And I'm also the compliance officer, which I make sure that cities and towns do have a veteran service officer.
Fran, National Commander of the Disabled American Veterans Auxiliary.
Yes, basically what the Disabled American Veterans Auxiliary is, our mission is to be service to veterans and their families, to outreach, to be a liaison for the disabled veteran, to work in unison with the DAV, assisting anywhere that we can. We do community service, we do Americanism, we have junior members who are very active, but basically, we try to keep everyone aware and apprised of what is available to them.
And David, you work out of the Boston office?
Yes, I'm the National Service Officer for the Boston office. I'm the Assistant Supervisor. Our main job is fulfilling the promises to the men and women who served. So our main goal is if a veteran comes in and wants to file a disability claim, educational benefits, death benefits, we're there to assist them at any cost.
I'm going to throw out a question that any of you, all of you can answer. Not being a veteran myself, does every city and town across the nation have a Rebecca Jennings, a Lyle Perney?
I can answer that. That's a no,
Really?
really. Only the state of Massachusetts has veteran service officers in almost every single community. We're the only state that has they are county veteran service officers, and those are for other states, but only for the state of Massachusetts. So we have local veteran service officers serving each veteran in the Commonwealth.
So just focusing on the individual community that the veteran service officer serves, which is phenomenal service compared to, like you said, Evan, if it was by county, that would be very overwhelming.
Now, a city like Boston, North Attleboro, and how many veterans here in North Attleboro do you serve?
According to the census report, those had filled out the census report, we have about 1,800 that are registered through the census report, but we probably have another 500 to 600 surviving spouses and another 1,000 veterans that haven't registered through the census report. So a pretty big population here in North.
Now, David, a city like Boston, would they have more than one Rebecca, one Lyle?
Yes, in the Boston office, we have 7 service officers and 1 area supervisor for the New England area, and then we have a total of about 286 national service officers. So we have an office in every state, in Florida being more the older veterans. We have about 3 offices. Same with Texas, have more offices, but yeah, we're in all over the country.
So having a veterans officer like Rebecca, an assistant like Lyle, is not a national mandate. That's something, and you mentioned it, Evan, only the state of Massachusetts, other states with large populations, how do those veterans get the services they need?
They don't have local veteran service officers. They would have to go to their national veteran service, national service officer. Yeah,
And depending on where that office
Where that
is, they
office
could be
is.
traveling quite a distance.
they could. Yes, absolutely.
And as I've traveled around the country, it is amazing what Massachusetts has for its veterans. It's an eye-opener, and I'm very proud to be from Massachusetts, that they have the benefits for our veterans and their dependents that we have.
Peter, I'm hoping sometime in the course of this, Evan can explain some of the benefits that are available through the state, through General Law 115. But we're the only state that has a law that with specific delineated benefits for veterans, especially low-income veterans. We've had people leave here, veterans go to other places to live with their families or for some other reason, and call us asking for information because they couldn't find a way to get it in wherever they moved.
David Henke has arrived. I take it the traffic wasn't too good.
Yes, I also visited Attleboro. It's a beautiful town. Not North Attleboro, but it is.
Well, Attleboro's a city, North Attleboro's a town, and people here in North Attleboro will be the first to tell you that. Now, this is a little out of custom, but now that David is here, might be a good time to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, absolutely.
So we will begin. The flag is right behind Lyle. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That gives David a chance to catch his breath. David, well, apparently Siri is talking to me here. She wanted to do the Pledge of Allegiance as well. David, let's talk about responsibility, your job responsibility. The other panelists did so a little bit early. What exactly do you do throughout the course of the day?
Well, my mission at Boston VA is kind of unique. Most VAs don't have an outreach agent as such, and that's what I do. I work for the director of Boston VA, one of the largest healthcare systems in the country. And at one time I worked with Rebecca Jennings here, our great VSO, and who's now doing this mission. And like me, at one time we were both engaged in engaging the full-time military force with pre- and post-deployment activities. And we both transitioned out to other missions. But the mission I find myself in now is still very much tied into a lot of the activities in which we were participating before when we were deploying and bringing troops back home, et cetera, except our world has expanded a lot more. And so it's a daily chance to engage veterans on a face-to-face basis. And in my case, at the Boston VA healthcare system, I get to see a large number of veterans every single day coming to us. But our mission, and my mission, the mission of my office is to get out into the streets, connect with community partners, with the town VSOs, city VSOs, and get them as we work together to push VA services out to the community and to bring veterans who aren't using services into not only the VA, but into all of our services in the community.
We were talking earlier, as you were being seated, about the fact that Massachusetts is unique in that every city or the majority of cities and towns have someone like Rebecca. VA hospitals, I know there's one in Boston, I know there's one in Brockton, I'm sure there's more across the state. How many across the state, and are those numbers fairly equal across the nation?
Well, the VA is, as probably most of us know, the largest federal entity besides the Department of Defense is the Department of Veterans Affairs, and the biggest dog within the Veterans Affairs are the hospital centers. And we've got about 150 plus major hospitals across the country, another 350 some clinics, outpatient clinics, et cetera. So our footprint is widespread to serve the veteran community, and finding out where the veterans population density is, and then having those safe havens, if you will, those centers of support strategically located is an ongoing effort. But Boston has had at one time was a center of a large demographic, but I think a lot of our veterans in the area have moved farther out into central western Mass as well. So you've got a big powerhouse out in Northampton, central western Mass, big facility there. Boston VA has 3 facilities: Brockton, Jamaica Plain, West Roxbury, 3 big facilities there, and 5 outpatient clinics. But we share the AO, if you will, in military terms, the area of operations. We share it with Bedford VA just to the north, and Providence VA down here. This is kind of our southern border here. So we all work hand in glove to make sure nobody falls through the cracks and they're able to get to the nearest place of support.
Here's another toss-up, as they say, during game shows. What is the relationship between the North Attleboro Veterans Office and the state? How often are you in contact with the state level?
Oh my goodness, I think on a daily basis, I'm communicating via email or by phone constantly, based on individual cases that come in my office. I'm pretty knowledgeable about Chapter 115 benefits in the law. However, Evan is the expert that I highly depend on for everything.
Yeah, we are. We're in contact just about on a daily basis. Either myself or state assistants or Paul Brawley from the federal side. The cases go for, if they're going to the federal side, then she's going to talk to Paul, or if it's on the state side and they have any questions, they contact us. And if we can't answer the question, we'll definitely get back with them. Absolutely.
How about the, you mentioned briefly...
Captain Meyer, please dial 5403. Captain Meyer, please dial 5403.
For those of you who weren't aware, we are in the police station here in North Attleboro. How about the relationship with the federal government? It sounds like one phone call, you might be able to take care of not
Correct.
only a
Yes.
state, but a national issue as well.
Correct. Like Evan said, definitely in contact with our point of contact in Providence, Paul Brawley. He helps with a lot of processing of the federal claims that go through. Not to jump off too much, but we also have Boston down there too that processes. I can't even imagine the amount of things that are processed just coming out of my office. We do hundreds of claims, certainly for our veterans, not only in this community, but surrounding communities. If they have a smaller, a veteran service officer that only works part-time, so of course, they're certainly welcome to come to my office. I never want to turn away a veteran or a family member.
Yeah, Peter, if I could, it gets a little confusing sometimes, the difference between state and federal benefits. Generally speaking, the state of Massachusetts provides benefits to lower-income veterans on a temporary basis to help them in times of need get their feet back on the ground. The federal benefits are permanent, federal from the Department of Veterans Affairs. They have to do with things like line of duty disabilities and injuries incurred in the service, in people in my era who have diseases caused by Agent Orange. So there's a difference, and we as town level people have to go to two different entities to get a complete array of services.
So we definitely rely on these experts to help us with our everyday job.
Yes, on that note, is on the federal level where we are, the JFK Federal Building, so you have the Mass Vet Services, Military Purple Heart, Disabled American Veterans, and if a veteran has power of attorney with the DAV or Mass Vet Services, we can access their record. Their whole entire military record we could see. So if they're talking about an injury that happened in service, I can locate it. If he was in Vietnam and he was injured, I can see what happened, and then we can start the process of the claim. So a lot of times on the town level, we work closely with them. If they need our assistance, we need their assistance. We help each other out to make sure the veteran is taken care of.
Now, did I read somewhere that the files that the Department of Defense keeps will soon, Veterans Department will be able to have access to those files, one big database, or is that already the case?
That's in the process right now.
Okay. Which that, I would think, would be a huge help.
It is a lot, because a lot of times now, what it used to be is when a veteran came to Boston, they had paper files. So you'd have to literally go across the other room, pick up a file, bring it back to your office, and go through it page by page. Now everything's electronic. So when a veteran comes into your office, what they do now is called the National Work Queue. So when a veteran comes in your office, you file a claim. It might not be done in Boston, because what they're trying to do is get the oldest claims done first to the newest. So the average claim process in Boston is 118. National is 120 to get the claim done. But you could have a decision done in Utah, Georgia, wherever the case is, whoever's going to grab the oldest one, pretty much to make it fair for every veteran, try to get the claim process done much quickly.
This may sound like a stupid question, but having not served in the military, not being a veteran, maybe it's not a stupid question. Is everyone who served in the military, are you considered a veteran?
Well, in the state of Massachusetts, you have to have served 180 days or 90 days during a wartime period. But that doesn't mean that during that wartime period, you had to have been in the war. So you could have been, say, during the Vietnam era, you could have been stationed in Florida, Alaska, doesn't matter where, as long as you served that minimum time.
So if someone were serving in to me, I'm confused what is considered wartime now, because it seems like we're constantly in conflict, but someone who is serving right now, would they be considered a veteran?
Yes.
Yes, when they started when they said a wartime error, because it makes a big difference is when you're filing a claim, especially for maybe a homeless veteran who is on low income. You can file a claim through a non-service connection pension, but he has to be during a wartime era. For example, when the Persian Gulf started, August 2nd, 1992, it's never closed. And it's
Okay.
still, so if you served some there, so if you served in 1990, you wouldn't be considered in a wartime era. But when it's in 1992 of August 2nd, when the Persian Gulf started, we just been in many conflicts, which obviously in September 11th, we ended up going into Iraq and Afghanistan. It just hasn't closed. And that's the same thing with Vietnam. I believe it ended in 76. So 76 between 90, they weren't considered a wartime era.
So someone who, say, served before the Gulf War, would they still get any kind of benefits? And if so, how would those compare to someone who, say, served in 1994?
Anybody who served on active duty and was injured on active duty can file a claim.
Okay. Now, how about someone who wasn't injured? Are there still veteran services available?
There are.
Go ahead.
Okay, there's a unique program here in the state of Massachusetts called Chapter 115 Benefits. As you said, it's a temporary relief program. It's administered by the town. So the veteran will come in, and if he's low income, usually about 200% of the federal poverty level, and off the top of my head, it's like, I'm going to say 1,900 and some change. So if your income is less than $1,900 and you have assets less than $5,000, you could be eligible for some financial assistance through the town. Yep.
Peter, it's important to point out that almost all the benefits we're talking about are for honorably discharged veterans. If someone was dishonorably discharged or for some, a general discharge, some of the benefits, they're not eligible. But by and large, the safe rule of thumb is they have to be honorably discharged from the service.
Is that a high percentage dishonorably discharged?
I don't know. That's not something.
No,
Okay. So that would be the exception rather than...
it is the exception.
Oh, by far, yeah, for
Oh, yeah.
dishonorable discharge, yeah, that would be
Yeah, they're far,
1/10 of 1% of
far,
that.
far and few in between.
Yeah,
That's good to hear. How about survivors of veterans?
Absolutely.
You know, how do veteran benefits change when a veteran dies, leaves behind a living spouse?
Regarding Chapter 115 or regarding federal benefits?
You might as well
Okay,
go through
regarding
both of them.
some of the, as long as they fit, their veteran was able to serve during certain times, and they were honorably discharged, their surviving spouse might be entitled to Chapter 115 based on their income and their assets. Regarding federal, I'm going to actually turn that right over to you.
Federal level, for a survival spouse, for her to get the benefit, there's two simple rules. One, you've had to been at 100% for 10 years or more, or that veteran would have to have died of that service-connected disability. The only time a child can get the benefit if he was disabled before the age of 18. He can apply for the benefit. But it's really simple on that. Everyone does understand that when a veteran saves 100%, when he dies with his disability. Then the wife would have to come in and file the benefit. And if she meets the criteria, she will be entitled to that benefit.
We were talking earlier, the difference between someone who served and officially a veteran. How does it work as far as having access to the VA hospitals?
So, you know, Congress passed the law, President signed it into law here just this past year, but it actually, the federal government does recognize anybody who's served Guard or Reserve, officially recognize or legally recognize them as a veteran, which is wonderful, which is the way it should be. Anybody that ever raised their hand and took that oath and swore to support and defend the Constitution, wore the uniform, whether it was on the weekends or full-time, deployed, not deployed, it doesn't matter. Anybody that ever took that oath and served in uniform, in effect, is a veteran. To qualify for these benefits, and there are these other gates that we're talking about, but to qualify for health care benefits, let's say, basically now, anytime after what was that, 1983 now, you have to have served a full term of 2 years of service, a full 24 months of active service. Now, a lot of veterans, or a lot of troops, and that's typical active duty, guardsmen and reservists, if you were federalized, served on federal active duty in support of these contingency operations, i.e. the global war on terror.
Title
like
10
that.
orders is.
Title
where-
10 orders,
Not Title
not going
32.
to training, not going to your military schools when you first went into the service. As great as all that is, that won't count towards actual, that's not actual counted as federal active time for purposes of being able to use the healthcare systems, et
So
cetera.
when there's a natural disaster and the National Guard is
Yeah, you're
called in?
mobilized, you're activated, you're serving the Commonwealth and the country, but it doesn't count as, in terms of satisfying needs to get into Veterans Affairs. You need to be activated on, as Rebecca just said, that's Title 10. That means that's the U.S. code that says you're in federalized service, meaning you're now at the operating at the behest of the President of the United States, not just your governor, who's your commander-in-chief before, or reservists under their different reserve commands, but now you're federalized, you're part of the federal force in that sense. So if that's ever happened for a guardsman or reservist, yep, if you've served whatever period of time it was, 30, 60, 90 days, that you were federalized for federal service, as long as you completed that time of duty, then you're eligible for VA care. Otherwise, it's a 2-year, again, post-1980s, it's a 2-year time window that you need to have completed that duty. Now, that said, the toughest thing for all of us, for veterans to use the healthcare system, the biggest gate, particularly in Massachusetts, where we're all, we have a fairly high level of income across the spectrum here, most of our population. So Congress put a limit on what veterans can make to be able to use the healthcare system. So they capped it. So roughly, a veteran, even if you're active duty, you qualified, yes, you've been I was in the Army 30 years, that's great, but if you're making over around 50,000 or so as an individual, and guess what, they count your spouse's income. So if you're making more than 50,000 yourself, and or your spouse is making more, depending on your number of dependents, et cetera, but it's right around 70, up around even an $80,000 cap. If you're making over that, you won't be automatically eligible to enter or be able to use VA health care unless you are able to go through some of the magic doors, as I say, or the golden doors. And the golden doors of getting to the VA is if you ever served in Vietnam or around Vietnam, Thailand, et cetera, Air Force bomb loader, et cetera, several other areas. The government's continually expanded this out. It's about Agent Orange is what it's kind of focused on. But if you were ever in or around combat operations in Vietnam, then you're a walk in the door. You just step right into the VA there. It doesn't matter how much you make. We have millionaires that use the VA and love it. They go there because they love the care, they love the place, and it doesn't matter for folks like that. Gulf War veterans, if you were boots on the ground over in that area of operations from 92 on, you are a walk in the door to use VA healthcare. I'm sorry, 90, what year?
22.
Is it 92? Yeah. So you're a walk in the door. Gulf War veterans are a walk in the door to use the VA. Again, part of it's because they're studying the effects of the oil well fires, et cetera. Couple other walks in the door. Get this: if you are a service-connected veteran at all, i.e., and again, we say service-connected veteran, that means somebody who has a service-connected disability, service-connected veteran of whatever percentage, 10, 20%. That percentage authorizes you immediately to walk in the door and use the VA. And there are a lot of veterans, to use the healthcare system. There are a lot of veterans, they're getting checks from the VA, monthly disbursements from our friends at the VBA, the Veterans Benefits Administration, downtown JFK Building or downtown Providence. And they're getting this money, but they're not taking advantage of the healthcare system, which is tremendous. And if you've got the service-connected disability, you're golden. You're walking the door. So there are a few.
Can I just add something, Dave? If members in our audience, if they are interested in the VA healthcare book, I do have a copy of that in my office. So I'd be happy to sit down with them and kind of go over the book too.
Let me make one correction. Persian Gulf was 1990.
Yeah, 90, yeah.
Okay.
Like, what did I say, 90?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also on the deployed National Guard reserves back in like 57 to before the early 60s, the Panamanian riots, and there are veterans who were deployed to Panama. They're considered a veteran, but they're not entitled to health care benefits. That I don't understand.
And you say these were guardsmen and reservists? Oh, that's interesting, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they, again, if they were federalized, for example, I went to Panama as a traditional guardsman
Deployed
a
twice.
few years back, right? And under that status, while we were deployed, we did a 3-week tour going through jungle warfare school or whatever. But, you know, and that did not count as federalized time. So I think it might have been the same thing. If they found themselves in country,
Yeah.
in Panama, for example. But most veterans, and I'll just throw out my blurb real quick about the VA care. This is the best thing going about federal health care like this. When I came to VA 5 years ago, I couldn't spell VA, you know, right? So when I got in there, it was, I'm learning all this stuff about health care, blah, blah, blah. But I'll tell you what I found out. Best care anywhere. There's a journalist who wrote a wonderful book literally called Best Care Anywhere. And what he points out is that the VA is actually the best model for health care in America. When he started out being paid by Forbes magazine to go and do an article about health care in America and how it all works and the insurance companies and what the hospitals charge and this and that, he started looking around and said, oh, I got to check out the socialized health care at the VA. Everybody knows how bad that is. As he got into it, he was just amazed. He was blown away. It changed his whole perception on how health care in America should be accomplished. And he said the VA is the model for that. So takeaway for any veteran is VA healthcare is not about the money. We got the best care anywhere. We got the best docs. Most of our docs and caregivers, nurses, physicians, et cetera, a lot of them are co-appointed at local, the best medical schools, Harvard, Tufts, BU. They're all coming over. They're working through the VA Providence down there, the same place, same way. That said, veterans do not pay deductibles. There are no deductibles at the VA. Where they're nickeling and diming you to death every time you get a procedure at a local hospital, you're not paying that at the VA. They're not after that. There are no premiums for VA care. It's fully qualified, full spectrum service, basically can count as your health insurance. And a lot of folks just don't realize, veterans don't realize, I don't have to pay another premium, I don't have to pay any deductibles. What's the question? I need to, if I can qualify, I definitely want to be in there. Best care anywhere.
It wasn't that long ago, though, that a national issue was the fact that veterans are dying before they can get the care that they need in VA hospitals.
And here's the
Does that
story.
change from administration to administration?
Oh, not at all. No, not at all. Matter of fact, by and large, the VA, and at one point it was the VBA, the Veterans Benefits folks, you know, they were the folks that, oh, you know, they're all gummed up over there. The claims are all backlogged. Veterans aren't getting their services, you know. And so for a while there, the focus was on that, and they did. It wasn't a matter, they were just overwhelmed with all the OIF, OAF vets returning, and then all the Vietnam vets were starting to come and realizing, wow, they're taking care of us now. I'm going to, you know, step in. So they got kind of overwhelmed. Well, they jumped on it, got into it, and the secretary at the time, Bob McDonald and Shinseki just before him, pulled it together, and they are now well over that hump, modernized all this, they're flying along. So a couple of years ago when this issue in Phoenix came out, again, thank God for the press is phenomenal. We need to shine a light on all these big federal programs. But let me tell you what, by and large, in regards to veterans being able to use health care, a hugely overblown issue in the sense that that is not a problem at all. And I'll tell you this, RAND studies, if you look, RAND Corporation has done their most recent study nationwide that says veterans are more satisfied with VA federal health care than they are with commercial care. They can get appointments quicker than they can through commercial health care. So I'll give you an example. Me up in Boston, I can see the same doctor that I have at MGH. He's over at Boston VA, Jamaica Plain. I can get the same doctor, get the same procedure done, not pay the deductible, not pay any premiums for it, and I can get my appointment quicker at the VA than I could get over at MGH. So while there are things that needed to be fixed, and just to kind of wrap that up, it's kind of an interesting or great story about that. They did a summary of all this, and you know, President Obama did a great job with pushing services and pushing funds to the VA, et cetera, and appointing Bob McDonald was a great secretary. Bob was, Army guy, West Point, 82nd Airborne, he got it. And so when Secretary McDonald was there, they did push a lot of these things. And they tackled this challenge of, wait times. Boston area and Providence and everything, we had very little issues with that. There's always issues everywhere. There's going to be something. But by and large, we had little or nothing like some of these other areas that did need to be addressed. But summary of all this, the President's counsel came to him, his legal counsel, on a summary of all these activities after the investigations and the Inspector General reports, et cetera. He said, Mr. President, this is what we found over the course of time, the last few months of examining this issue. Number one, the VA is a tremendous health care system. The veterans, by and large, love it. They think it is phenomenal care. However, there are issues, too, at the VA that need to be addressed, including some of these things, scheduling, blah, 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 in some areas of the country. But by and large, the VA, as a huge, huge system, functions exceptionally well. And he said, and what seems to be even more important is that the employees at the VA make it a phenomenal place. That many employees at the VA have turned down higher paying jobs in the commercial care field to work at the VA because they believe in the mission. And that's absolutely right. With 35% or more of the staff at any VA hospital, when you walk in the door, they're all veterans. 35% or more of them are all veterans. They've got your back. And guess what? All the other ones that aren't vets, they've all got family members, friends, this and that. So there is a unique atmosphere. I think anybody in the room could agree when you walk into a VA hospital or clinic or whatever, you got that feeling you're kind of back on home turf. You got people that got your back. And guess what? I don't feel that, as much as I appreciate these quality care facilities, I don't feel that going in other places, but I do when I walk into a VA. Go ahead.
Excuse me. And on that note, the Providence VA, I was at a meeting, a Mini-Mac meeting a couple of months ago, and they are fourth in the country at this point in the VA.
For quality care,
Quality
approval
care.
rates, yeah.
And they have, 3 years ago, they received a grant for prosthetics research. They have a whole building just for prosthetic research, and they're doing phenomenal stuff in there.
It's interesting you say that, because when I think of procedures like that, I think of, seeing on TV Walter Reed Hospital and so on, but it's happening in our own
It's
backyard.
happening right
Yeah.
here.
Well, actually, the centers for research, the centers of excellence for research are not out, most of them are not in the commercial field. They're in the VA. The VA leads the country, trains 60 to 70% of the doctors are all trained or have some of their training done at a VA facility. And what that means is that the VA is critical. We need that VA because it sets the standard for healthcare in the country in a lot of ways. But the research center, so Boston VA is the center for TBI research and post-traumatic stress, women's care and services, and those are all headquartered actually in Jamaica Plain. And one of the cool programs, has anybody heard of the Million Vet program? Mm-hmm. The Million Vet program? Okay, so what that is, it's a big box, a building, like a 3-story box they built out in between some of the buildings there at Jamaica Plain. It's a huge tower, basically. It's a refrigerated unit. And what they're in the process of doing is collecting 1 million blood samples across the spectrum of veterans, and to track them and use this as a database to track disease, to learn about diseases, to eventually look at things genetically, I suppose, but it's all safeguarded, safely kept. But the point is, and they've got 550,000 now, so they're over the halfway mark to that million man mark, if you will, or million person mark. But why the VA? Why is the VA doing that? Why are they the cutting edge? Because veterans give. Veterans, even if you're out of uniform, you still have that sense of service. Veterans aren't necessarily consumers. That's why you got to go grab them sometimes. Say, hey, you need to use the VA. So use those government things. Use the heck out of them. That's what they're there for. But veterans, by and large, we want to give. We're not consumers. We're givers. So what a perfect group to go to. And so when the government said, we really need to find a way to get a mass number. If we're ever going to crack the code on cancer and heart disease and all these other things, we need to get, we've got to find a way to get massive amounts of data and collect it from folks. So guess what? The VA, that's a place to get it done. And that's where the centers of excellence for all these massive research projects actually are. They're within the VA.
disabled veterans, disabled American veterans, any idea what the percentage of overall veterans are that are disabled? I'd hope the number is
I
low,
couldn't get
but I
the
have a feeling
percentage,
it's not.
But I'll give you an idea for our organization. We have 1.4 million fully paid members. We're a nonprofit, as he was speaking, like, we work closely with the VBA. So when a veteran comes in and stuff, you know, and they want to claim, well, if we see something that they didn't catch, we can jump in and, you know, assist them, and they can assist us any way to get the claim done. But I couldn't give you the exact number, but I could tell you that our organization, with the 1.4 million active fully paid members, is pretty big.
Yeah, again, it gets a little confusing. I don't have a VA recognized disability, but I got a Purple Heart in Vietnam, so that makes me eligible to join the DAV, which I did. So when you talk about disabilities, you know, there are a legal definition of disabilities. There are ones that are judged medically by the Veterans Administration, and then there's the DAV, and members there don't necessarily have to be disabled to join.
Yes, that's a perfect example, because you'll see Vietnam veterans, and I'll see right off, they don't have a disability, but I look at their DD-214, I see it's a combat infantry badge. The veteran was in combat, and you don't, like, for our office, everyone in our office has to be a disabled veteran served in their country. Is the reason being is when you have a disabled veteran or someone that's been injured, it's a little bit easier for another veteran to talk to another veteran. So that's how our organization's a little bit different than other organizations.
So I think in Massachusetts, we did a count. Remember I said there are a number of veterans who are getting veterans benefits, get that check in the mail for disability, but they haven't taken the next step to go in and start using the hospital. So we did a count on that, and as best we can determine, it looks like that in the Commonwealth here, so Evan, we're down about 350,000 vets now, 360, something like that. And about 350,000 vets in the Commonwealth. It looks like a little over 100,000 or more have a disability claim or service connected. And so they're getting some kind of benefit or a payment or whatever, a pension or a service-connected disability. So a little less than a third, I guess, would be for the Commonwealth here. But to cap that off about everything they do. So a veteran comes in, talks to Rebecca, comes to the town hall, says, I need to find out about this stuff. You know, my husband said it's time to get it done, or my wife, you know, gave me the boot and said, get in there and find out what you're eligible for. They go and see Rebecca. Sits down, he says, gee, you know, I make, and I'm a Korean War vet or Korean era. I was in the peacetime in the 60s era, you know, 50s, 60s, whatever, 70s. And, but, you know, I made $80,000 last year, you know, and my wife made this and that. So, geez, we're over the income limit. What are we going to do? Well, Rebecca sits down with him and says, well, what about your physical disabilities or anything? Well, nothing much happened to me in service. Well, think about it. What did you do? Well, I was on a carrier, you know. You were on a carrier. You been around the flight deck at all? Yeah, well, you know, a lot of noise, things like that. Yeah, were you in the Air Force? Oh, yeah, around the flight line. Yeah, around, you know, doing stuff. Were you in the military at all? Did anything explode around you? All right, well, it's pretty much all of us. You know, it's part of the job. But guess what? That all lends to hearing loss. Now, I can't be the one to say that everybody came away with a hearing disabled from the military. However, that is a great door of opportunity, and somebody like a VSO like Rebecca will say, was quick to say, well, do you have any hearing loss? I'm sorry? I said, do you have any hearing loss? And, oh, yeah. Or you got any ringing in your ears tonight? I said, oh, yeah, I got some stuff. Okay. Might it possibly be related to your time in service? Well, I don't know. I guess it was around stuff, you know, engine rooms on a ship, all these things, you know. If there's a possibility, go ahead and work with the VSO, put the claim in, or an agent, you know, with the DAV or you know, American Legion, VFW, all these folks. Work with that claims agent, put that claim in. And I get a number of veterans who over income can't use the VA up front, but they go and they get things checked out. And sure enough, they get a service-connected disability claim established with the VSO or the agent in the area and their post or whatever agent. And they come back a year or so later, they said, hey, Dave, I got my disability now, so can I use the healthcare system? Yeah, you're walking the door. bang, off we go. They're in, now they're used in healthcare too, so.
I'm sorry, we see more, of all the cases we see, there are more hearing-related cases than any other. And we
Well, I'm
have,
going to say cancer too. We have a lot of Agent Orange here in North,
not in the
too.
trees, but we, just to put that into perspective, on the outside, and that, you know, if you were to go get a set of custom state-of-the-art hearing aids from an ear doctor, it costs you between $6,000 and $8,000. And if you can demonstrate a line of duty-related hearing loss, they're same hearing aids, but they're free.
I think they're better. I honestly, a lot of our vets that have come in, and I've seen vets that come in, they purchase the hearing aids themselves. They downgraded the hearing aids because they couldn't afford the better quality hearing aids. But then they go to the VA in Providence or wherever they might go, and they get these state-of-the-art hearing aids. That I had one veteran that had one connected to his phone. He could listen to music and hear when his actually phone rung. So, I mean, I'm going to echo what Dave said. Definitely getting into either an agent or myself so that we can get you into the VA healthcare system. And if that's not something that you're looking to pursue, and you're looking to pursue a financial, like you're having difficulties and maybe you are eligible for that Chapter 115 benefit, certainly just walking in the door, a veteran service officer, we can decipher and direct you to these panelists.
Fran, I know
There is one piece of legislation that we really need to reach out to all of the families and dependents of veterans and the veterans themselves. It's the Comprehensive Caregivers Act, which presently only will pay benefits to post 9/11 veterans caregivers. And we need equity in that caregiver benefit for veterans of all eras who have taken care of their veterans at home.
I was just going to say, can you explain what a caregiver is? Because I don't think some of
A
people in the
caregiver could be the spouse, a child, a sibling, a parent of a disabled veteran who takes care of the veteran at home, who may have given up their own goals in life to be able to be there to better the life of the veteran. And it's not just the female spouse of a male veteran. There are so many female veterans, women veterans today, who are finally getting the recognition and getting the benefits that they richly deserve, and their spouse should be entitled to those benefits as well.
I think it's important to point out that the DAV on a national level is the prime entity advocating for equity in care and home care. So, kudos to the DAV for doing that.
Having the last two governors we've had here in the state of Massachusetts, we've had a Democratic governor, we now have a Republican governor. Does it matter which party is controlling the governor's office as far as funding for veterans here in
No,
Massachusetts?
they all love us. Doesn't matter what party you're under. The government, the state government always gives the veterans all the funding that we ask for, and we have no issues, absolutely nothing.
So from year to year, when the budget's being looked at, the veterans are treated with the
I've
respect
been up
they
at the
deserve?
state for, I think, over 10 years now. I don't believe we've ever had a budget cut. So the Veteran Services has never had a budget cut. No.
I'm going to echo that, and here in North, too.
No.
It's never been an issue, never had a cut.
And that
There
goes
are
back
not.
to what I said about Massachusetts leading this country in benefits for their veterans. It's a very proud state.
How about on the national level? Yeah, the president submits the budget to Congress. Does it matter as far as veterans are concerned, benefits-wise, whether or not there's a Republican or a Democrat in the Oval Office?
It is a budget that needs to be proposed, and if it's going to be cutting, you ask Fran. We were down in Capitol Hill in November, and we're right up in the front. If they want to take a benefit away, we're not going to allow it. We're going to, you're going to hear our voice, and that's how she was saying the caregiver package, which is a huge program that we need to get done for all veterans. But that's what we're doing. We're fighting, so we're up at Capitol Hill.
So VA healthcare is unique in that sense.
Yes.
Did you
But
want-
there is another, something else that just recently came out, and DAV is fighting that tooth and nail, and it is the veteran who is unemployable. They have,
We should say that this veteran might not be at 100%. Let's say, for example, amputee of both legs, and he doesn't meet the 100% mark. Due to his service disability, he meets the criteria, so he can file for individual employability, which pays him at 100%.
Right.
Which she was talking about, what they want to propose to do is that when you hit the age of 62, you collect your Social Security benefits, that you would not be entitled to the individual employability. That
Right.
would destroy veterans. That would, some people could go homeless. So I believe they've
Because they
talked.
count on that VA disability payment in addition to,
There's a lot of veterans, when they say, when you hit 62, well, you get your Social Security. Well, some of these veterans came home from Vietnam and they were seriously wounded. How are they going to collect Social Security? They didn't work. So it's something it can't be touched. It should not be touched.
Before we continue, does anyone sitting out with us have any questions to ask of this panel? They have been so interesting to listen to, and I have learned so much. That being no, I will ask the next question. Disabled American veterans, the difference between the DAV and the DAV auxiliary, you know what it is, but I don't, and I'm sure other people don't.
right. The DAV auxiliary is any spouse, any family member of a disabled veteran is entitled to belong to the Disabled American Veterans Auxiliary. We need those people. We need the numbers, because our numbers added to the DAV and other veterans organizations, when Congress, our elected officials are looking at benefits and at proposed legislation, those numbers count, because when you think for every single member or disabled veteran, there are probably 6, a minimum of maybe 6 per family who are entitled to belong to the auxiliary. And those numbers really add up, and they look at those numbers. We don't just cook at meetings and supply refreshments. We're out there doing the van drivers for the DAV transportation, the VA transportation. We have auxiliary members that are drivers, volunteers in many offices within the VA. Some get certified for helping, with computer issues and HIPAA and the whole thing. You have to have a background check, but
They're
they're in there
volunteers.
volunteering.
volunteers at the VA, they're volunteers, but they actually have clearance, they've gone through the security process, and they're actually able to use VA computers to support, with a limited degree, but they can get and do those things.
So they're out there doing.
The auxiliary is essential how our organization works. Without them, the voice ain't heard. When we go to Capitol Hill, all our words, all our voices mean something to get the job done. So they're huge to us.
We, believe it or not, are almost at the end of our hour, so we'll wrap it up with final thoughts from each of you. Dave, we'll begin with you. We'll work down the table.
Well, like you'd mentioned earlier, healthcare in America is an ongoing, developing creature. And you look
That's
at Europe.
putting it mildly.
Yes, yes. And, You know, and that's one of the things for Republicans. Typically, they're the ones that will cut big government. You know, push more things out to the field. But there's certain goods and services, and particularly as a Commonwealth, even from our colonial days, Puritans, the Bay Colony, supporting the Bay Colony militia. There is a unique strength in taking a common good or a public good. If you consider healthcare as a common good, then it needs to be regulated, controlled, and expanded through certain levels. And the VA is the one place in the federal government where something like healthcare is controlled in that way. And I got to say, it's a big success story. So where it's going to go from here, we'll see. But folks on both sides of the aisle certainly want to support veterans, even when it sometimes seems to go against their grain of what they normally think politically. But I'll say this to veterans. Getting health care is nothing more than what I call, anybody remember PMCS? Or
Yes.
PM?
Preventive-
Everybody says, right? What?
Preventive maintenance,
Checks.
corrective services, I guess.
Corrections services, checks and services.
Checks and services.
So when I came in, you know, working at the VA, I realized we got all the services there, right? And I got a Navy guy, you know, what's this? You know, what's it? It's the floor. No, it ain't the floor, it's the deck. Okay, all right, so what's that? That's a bulkhead. Okay. We can't even talk the same language, right? But I tell you, it's funny. Think about it. All of us in the military, the one language that we all learned, apart from our warfighting skills, we all learned things, basic things about maintenance and military law and things like that. But maintenance was one thing common to all, and it is a priority. Preventive maintenance and checks and services are those things that everybody knows across the service, every Coast Guard, Airman, Marine, soldier, sailor. So if you think about it in that sense, for a lot of folks like me, you put that stuff on the back burner. You know, I'll live with this until it really breaks down or something really happens. You got to do it just like you were trained when you came in the service and they said, hey, before you do anything, you take care of that weapon system, that communication system, that gear, that equipment, you know, preventive maintenance, right? First thing you do, come back in before you turn the vehicle in, you got to go over it, do all the after action stuff. So there's something about looking at ourselves as a system that's very important, and we need to be proactive in that sense. So PMCS, folks, get it done, get her done. Get on in, do your yearly check, get into the VA healthcare system if you're not using it, and then get in and start, at least come in once a year or whatever. It makes it stronger for all of us. The more veterans that use the VA, the stronger it is for all of us. It's going to keep it going. So anyway, it's a pleasure to be able to serve and be in that place. So there's nothing like it. And it's great. The other cool thing is get to work every day with everybody from the state and the town and the local services and career centers and the vet reps there. And we kind of call it a one team, one fight approach to veterans care. So we're all interconnected. So you got an issue or concern, you don't know, I got the big VA stuff, I can't help you pay your rent. Guess who can? The state and the town can. Hey, you need back surgery? Well, you know, Rebecca's pretty good with a knife, but you know, yeah, we can do that. So between us as a group, we're very well connected, and we get it done for you.
Thank you. David?
The DAV has one mission, fulfilling the promise to the men and women who've served. There are 22 suicides a day on veterans, and I just want to let the veterans know that we're there for them, for anything they need. It's not just claim benefits or get educational benefits. If they need assistance with anything, we're going to help them at any cost. So if anybody's, the veterans listening and they need any help or anything, you know, come to our website. We have www.dav.org. We're there, and you can click on the Boston office. You'll get a hold of me. I'll do whatever I can do to make sure you're taken care of.
Thank you. Fran?
As far as the auxiliary, we are with the same mission of service to veterans and their families. We need those families to step up and become involved in the VSOs, whether it be DAV, VFW, American Legion. Without this younger generation, all of the benefits accrued within the VA by the previous generations of veterans will eventually go by the wayside if we don't use them, if we don't utilize and keep abreast of what's out there. And we welcome all new members.
Thank you. Evan?
I am a resident of North Attleboro, and I'd like to tell all the North Attleboro veterans out there and their widows and their spouses to come by the office, and if they have any questions whatsoever, they are a one-stop center. They go in, they can ask anything, and these two will answer them, and if they can't, they'll contact us, and if we can't answer them, we'll get back to them with an answer. Right, Dave? Absolutely. So I challenge you all, North Attleboro veterans and veterans around the area, hey, just come on in and have a cup of coffee with them. Say hello, introduce yourself. Give them your DD Form 214, have them put them in the cabinet, scan it in, so you'll always have it on file.
And if you're like me, stop by the elections office first and grab some candy. Lyle, your thoughts?
The only thing I can add to what Evan said is that we're open, same hours as Town Hall is open. Our office is on the first floor in Town Hall, and one of us is always there. So come in, please, if you have any questions, or call us. It's 699-0120, and we'd be glad to answer any of your questions.
And before
only
Rebecca
thing-
gets the final word, I want to thank both Lyle and Rebecca for making our job so much easier in organizing this and getting a fine panel. Now, Rebecca.
The only thing I want to do is just basically say, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming here tonight. I know that you have very busy schedules, and I certainly appreciate that, and I know that the audience definitely appreciate it. I want to thank North TV for hosting this. It's a wonderful experience. I hope you guys enjoyed each other, the interactions and the conversations that we had. And like Evan said and Lyle said, I just want to echo that. Come on in the office. We'd be happy to assist you.
And this forum will be replayed on our government channel, Comcast Channel 98, Verizon Channel 23, beginning June 23rd, and it will actually air in rotation with the meetings and North TV programs on our government channel through July 20th. And as Rebecca knows firsthand...
I want to do one plug for my
yes.
show, too.
Oh, yes, Veterans Forum.
I do have a show called Veterans Forum, in which I do highlight a lot of these different organizations that I have come in contact when I was working at the state level. So watch my show.
And Rebecca can speak firsthand that how many people watch? She said she was shocked at how many.
I was shocked at the amount of folks that do watch that aren't even related to veterans, because some of these things that I discuss in the show can be utilized for just everyday folks.
Well, I want to thank each and every one of you, not only for attending tonight, but your service as well. That'll wrap up the first of North TV's public forums. As I mentioned at the very top of this forum, we have two more on the horizon. On July 24th, 7 p.m. right here in this room, we will be discussing the future of North Attleboro Public Schools, certainly a very hot topic. And then again on the following Monday, July 31st, as a matter of fact, Lyle will be serving on that panel as well. Economic development here in the town of North Attleboro. What's it going to take? What is being done in the process? And is it the answer to all of North Attleboro's financial woes? I'll give you a hint. That answer is no. On behalf of Chris Miller, our director, Megan Miller, I'm Peter Gay. Thank you for watching this live public forum on North TV. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.